Hello and welcome to the Mixtape podcast. I am your host, Mark, and every week we'll take a deep dive into my guests' inspirations and influences by asking them to make up an imaginary 6-track mixtape. There are over 120 archive episodes. The mixtapepodcast.com is your one-stop shop for all of those episodes, my YouTube channel, and it'd be great to catch up with you on social media as well. Don't forget, if you enjoy this episode, to give us a like, a share, or a follow wherever you listen to your podcasts. And I hope you enjoy this week's episode. Hello and welcome to this week's mixtape for Radio Fremantle 107.9 and the mixtapepodcast.com. Joining me today on the show, it is an absolute pleasure to welcome Paul Smith from Maximo Park. How are you, mate?
I'm good. How are you?
Very well, thank you. Very well. Thanks for coming on the show, making the time. Really, really appreciate it. So I was chatting to my beautiful friend Natalie earlier. She's my sort of indie kid sister the cool one that I never had. And I was saying that I was going to be chatting to you, and it was a 20-year anniversary thing. And she was like, "Oh, I hate it when bands do that. It makes me feel so old. Like bands that I was into, do you know what I mean? And now they're doing a 20-year anniversary tour. Like, does it feel like that? You've obviously been consistently putting out records in the meantime, but since a certain trigger came out, does it feel like 20 years?
In some ways it does, and in other ways it doesn't. I feel like I've got so much to say musically. I'm not sure if I'm able to do it. I think that's the other thing about being in a band. Some people just keep making records because it feels like the natural thing to do, or that it's part of their job. Whereas, I just want to make great music, and if I can't, then I will just I'll go and work in a library or whatever. I'll do something different because I love music too much. And so it feels like, I'm sorry to remind your friend of their mortality, but it especially in indie rock, bands don't last 5 minutes, never mind 20 years. So for us to be here, it felt like a good time to say, hey, come to a party. It's a 20th birthday party for a band. We'll play pretty much all of our first record, but a few other things in between. Let's celebrate the band. Let's celebrate having a good time. And thankfully, the songs still mean a lot to me and the rest of the band. So I think if it didn't resonate now, we probably wouldn't bother, or, I understand why a lot of people do it, because it's a financial incentive behind it. But to us, a lot of our contemporaries fell by the wayside, and it feels like a way of almost saying thank you to the fans and saying, hey, this album still means something to us. Does it mean something to you? Maybe it was you were at university, or you were, listened to it in your big sister's bedroom through the walls or whatever. There is obviously an element of kind of looking back and feeling something that you felt at that time. I mean, we've all got our favorite records that are like that are kind of time capsules that you enter every time that you listen to them. And I feel like, as you say, we just keep making records that we believe in. In some ways, every record's the same to me. I love it. We put it out. We hope people like it, and then we move on to try and make something new and say something fresh. But of course, I'm not going to deny that the first album coming out and changing our lives was not impactful, or something a bit different. I mean, we had no idea anybody would be listening to it 20 years later. We had no idea who would listen to it back in 2004 when we were making it in London. To us, we were in the middle of it and excited and just absolutely buzzing to be making music together and to be in a recording studio and be on Warp Records, one of our favorite record labels ever, and have the kind of independence, no major label sort of pressure to do well in that kind of climate where, yes, bands were doing well, and I don't think Warp were ignorant of that fact. But at the same time, they just said, whatever kind of record you want to make, if you want to make a sort of hardcore punk record, that's up to you. We believe in you, and yeah, I mean, again, I still remember all of those things as if it was yesterday. And yes, other things have slipped away, and it feels like we're different people in some ways, but we're also very, very similar. And I think that's an interesting thing about doing something like this, where you actually have a kind of reckoning with your life and the music that you've made.
It's a bit of a snapshot of your life at the time, isn't it? I think, looking back, you mentioned contemporaries there, and sort of around that time. Like for me, I remember around that time, I was single at the time, and I was just going to gigs left, right, and so I was living in just outside London at the time. I used to listen to John Kennedy every night, or every Wednesday, or whenever he was on. I used to listen to X-Thing all the time, so I was really like in amongst it. The records that were out around that time, the debuts, you had like the Kaiser Chiefs record was out. The Hardfire record was out at the time, Stars of CCTV. But the Silent Alarm Block Party was out, and your record as well. Obviously, it was like for me, so many good memories of great gigs and all that stuff around that time. With the songs on the album, Paul, did they, being your debut album, did they come together sort of over time, or was it kind of a let's sit down and write an album? Because I think you did you put out a double A side or first before the album?
Yeah. Yes.
So did you have all those songs ready as well?
Yes. So we'd been busy in the northeast, and I think being from, I mean, I'm from near Middlesbrough,
Mm.
a small town called Billingham, and I'd moved up to Newcastle and gone to university and met the rest of the band um, through Tom. Really, we were in art history class together, and he said, "Do you want to be in my band? We need a singer." And I know that you play guitar, and he'd seen me sort of jumping around in an instrumental band and being a sort of frontman of an instrumental band. And I'd never sung before, so this is the interesting thing about how when we started out, Maximo Park had been playing live, and Duncan and Archers, our guitar player and our bass player, had been singing their own songs and kind of swapping instruments, and Dunk would play bass on Archers' songs and vice versa. And but I guess they didn't feel comfortable being at the front of the band or singing in the way that they wanted the songs to come across. So
Mm.
when I joined, it was some of those songs that are on the first album were part of the band's repertoire, but they said, you need to feel part of the band, do what you want, keep the lyrics if you want, take them away, keep the melodies, whatever you think is best. And they obviously didn't know that whether it would work or not, and neither did I. But it was because I'd never sung before. I think there's a kind of freshness to it, and yeah, I went through the songs and said, yeah, I'm not going to keep any of the lyrics in this one, but here's what I've done. Check it out. It's now called Going Missing instead of
Mm.
Salford Lyrics, whatever it was, which is what it was called.
Yeah.
And graffiti again. I was like, oh no, I like that line. I'll do, because Duncan had written, let's do graffiti and paint the walls or whatever. And I was like, well, let's make it conditional. I'll do graffiti if you sing to me in French. And then I wrote the next line, what are we doing here if romance isn't dead? Because to me, it reminded me of, Paris in 1968 and romantic graffiti being daubed on the walls and this kind of revolutionary time, counterculturally speaking. And so, I was kind of trying to invest my own meaning in the songs, and again, trying to learn how to sing, and
Mm.
think there's something very unvarnished or whatever about the songs. Especially I listen back to the songs on the first record, and the singing is not great as far as I'm concerned, but it gets across exactly what I wanted, emotionally. And if we are, if nothing else, an emotionally driven band,
Mm.
especially once I joined the band, I am what I am. And I think that's again something that helped, me integrate into the band. And then we wrote obviously more songs like Apply Some Pressure or whatever. Um,
Yeah.
the night I lost my head, which was the other side of the double A side with the Coast Is Always Changing that we did. And all of a sudden we had an album. And I think Acrobat was the last song to go onto the record, and we played it to Paul Epworth and said, we have this weird song. What should we do with this? And we'd spoken to Paul, and he'd done the Block Party record and the Future Heads record, which we really loved, and the sound of those sounded really sort of fresh and exciting to us, modern yet kind of classic, alternative rock, and when we spoke to Paul about the songs, he said, "Yeah, I mean that song's amazing. It's got to go on the record." And he
My favourite song on the album, Matt. I love that one. It's my favourite.
Oh, thank you. And so yeah, in the end, we felt like, right, we've got all these sort of we singles, I suppose. It's an album that could, most of the songs could be released as a single, and that was our mentality. Like, I guess bands like the Buzzcocks inspired us, where it was like every song is super melodic and catchy, and yet there's a melancholy side to it.
Mm.
But again, we wanted to like think, well, maybe in the future we'll expand outwards, and maybe this spoken word song that's a bit slower than the others with electronic drum kit, that could give us, I guess, scope to do more in the future. So we were definitely thinking of it as a sort of holistic thing, and thinking, what is this album? What does it mean? How does it set us up for the future? All of those thoughts went into it before we actually recorded it, and I think you can probably hear that. I guess a lot of bands have a few great singles and then they're rushed into making an album, and that wasn't the case with us. We, being from the Northeast, we developed on our own, away from any sort of music industry pressure. We were very much outsiders, and we still live here and operate in that kind of way, which I think is helpful for our songwriting.
Yeah, no, for sure, absolutely. Let's talk about the 20th anniversary vinyl that you put out. I think there's two. There's a double LP and a triple. I think, if I remember rightly. I love that as a fan, as a music fan, and a vinyl nerd as well. I love all that, like alternate versions, radio sessions. Do you know what I mean? Demo versions as well. I interviewed Franz Ferdinand recently, and they had a version on their deluxe LP that was voice note, a voicemail that was a song idea. Like, it was just so, fans love that shit, right? It's so good. How did you go about picking those sessions? And yeah, what was there a sort of big band discussion in terms of what goes on the deluxe version?
Yeah, there was a lot of discussion. In the end, pretty much everything that we've released from that era has gone on. For example, there's a song called Wasteland, which was part of the Help compilation,
Sure.
which War Child did. So that's on there, which we've never released personally ourselves before. So it's nice to have it in amongst its kind of peers from that time. There's a song called Surrender, which is us. We only played it once. Me and Duncan played it. I'd written the song, and we went into a Tom Robinson session, and he said, have you got any other songs? And we played it then. We never recorded it. So maybe it'll end up on the tour. Let's see.
Oh,
But but yeah, it was um, kind of easy in some ways, because we liked a lot of the B-sides that we released, pretty much all of them. And so even though there's a few there that are like, oh yeah, that's definitely us experimenting, they're all on there. But it was interesting listening back to old demos that we'd done before we'd been signed, and we were trying to sort of search for our sound. So there's other versions of The Coast Is Always Changing, I think, and The Night I Lost My Head. Now I'm All Over the Shop, much slower. Paul Epworth sped everything up when we were in the studio, which I'm thankful for. Except when I'm playing them live next year, that'll be hard to get back up to the tempo. But yeah, there's also like a session that we did in a studio called Gravity Shack with a guy called Pat Collier, who was in the Vibrators punk band. And so we were just excited to work with Pat. And it was a calling card for record companies. But you can kind of hear that we were pretty much as is on the record. It's a lovely document of where we were before we went in, and the nerds out there can kind of tell the difference and go, hang on, that doesn't sound like that on the record. You can kind of compare and contrast, but again, it gives you that kind of idea of where we were just before we made the record, and before that as well, with some of those early demos.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think it's maximopark.com is where you can grab the vinyl. It's in all good record stores as well. If you're in Perth, I'm sure if you head to Midland Records, Rhubarb Records, one of those guys, if they haven't got it, they'll grab it in for you. Don't go to Amazon. Don't go to the big chains. Support your local record store. People who listen to this show never get bored of me saying that, and I never get bored of saying it. I say it every single time we talk about vinyl. All right, we touched on you mentioned the tour there, Paul. So let's talk about that. First time back in Australia since 2009, I believe, hitting all the usual suspects: Sydney, Melbourne, Brisbane, Adelaide. The one for Perth people,
kicking off a tour on the 23rd of April in Fremantle at Frio Social. It's destroyalllions.com for tickets. Looking forward to getting back down here, mate.
Absolutely. I mean, you sometimes think, will we ever go back? And luckily we are. It's, for us as people on the other side of the earth, just to even be in Australia and to just be in a different environment and a different bunch of people, that's always exciting for us, like the idea of touring and being out there, singing your songs, singing for your supper, being a troubadour. It doesn't get much further than being in Australia. And we've got so many great memories of playing very sweaty shows, a lot of sweat, a lot of perspiration, and yeah, it felt like we really needed to come back if we could, and thankfully we'll be there, and we'll again. People sort of forget a little bit about what you like, and it's the same with me when I go and see a band that I haven't seen in a while that I like. I'm like, wow, this is I love seeing these guys. So hopefully that will happen again. We'll replicate the energy and passion of the earlier shows, and it'll be exciting.
You're listening to The Mixtape.
The Mixtape is brought to you in association with Giglist. Giglist is your one-stop shop for all your live events. If you're looking to get out and experience some live music, you can filter by artist, venue, suburb or date. If you are an artist, it will take you less than a minute to list your gig for free on the website. The Mixtape brought to you in association with Giglist. Gigs in a list.
Let's do some mixtape track choices then, mate. So, as you know, the show's called The Mixtape, and when I get guests like yourself on, as a way of exploring their influences and inspirations, I just get you to pick some songs in some categories, and then we'll have a listen to the songs on the radio as we go through. All right, so track one of your mixtape, Paul, is an attention grabber, mate. What would you pick for an attention grabber on your mixtape?
Well, I've thought about this, and I was thinking, oh, maybe something by Otis Redding, something that's comes out of the blocks pretty quick. But then yesterday, I was listening to Alice in Chains, and I was listening to Damn That River, and it's got such a heavy riff, and I think a lot of people wouldn't necessarily associate me or the band with Alice in Chains, and so it'll be that'd be one to wake people up. They might skip past it unless they're a grunge fan like myself, but that's yeah, we'll go with that one.
That's a fantastic choice. The biggest joy I get in doing this show is when it happens like that, when someone who's known for a particular genre picks something so far outside of their own genre. The best example, are you familiar with L7, the grunge
Yes.
band? Right. So Donita Sparks said to me, her track 2 she sings in the shower is Take a Chance on Me by ABBA. Absolutely love that. Brilliant. Yeah, they're the ones that get me. The ones that are like so far outside their own genre. They're brilliant. Speaking of which, track 2 of your mixtape, Paul. What is a song you sing when you're on your own in the car or the shower?
Well, having a 9-year-old daughter means that the answer is probably K-pop Demon Hunted, but I'm not going to say that. I when I was young, I listened to a lot of gangster rap, and
Mhm.
I ended up doing a master's degree in the Americas, societies, histories, and cultures, just so that I could learn more about the birth of popular music and all of these different things. And I wrote an essay on resistance in rap music,
Mhm.
and I was talking about groups like Cannibal Ox on the Def Jux label. And I'm not going to mention that. I'm going to go further before that. My sort of like real introduction to rap was it was Vanilla Ice and that kind of thing. But which again, me and my wife have started singing to our daughter now, and she'd probably be the only 9-year-old who likes Vanilla Ice at this current time. But I'm going to say Snoop Dogg. I'm trying to think of one that's the least offensive, but I will go with just What's My Name. I'm sure there's a radio edit of it, I've heard a radio edit of it, and I love the flow of words in rap music. I love the Wu-Tang Clan, which is my kind of more sophisticated answer, but really gangster rap and Ice Cube and Snoop Dogg, Warren G, the G-Funk era was my era.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I do. I can put out a language warning before a song on the radio, so we're all fine there. That's all good. No worries. I don't like, especially with rap songs, like you say, with the flow. I don't like playing the radio edits that much because I sometimes, if there's so much swearing, it takes away from the flow. Do you know what I mean? My son's 13 now, and he's got his own Spotify, and he's into rap, and he likes Tyler the Creator and stuff like that. And but I've had to push up his parental settings so that he can hear the songs that he likes. But obviously, we had a conversation about, swearing and artistic expression and it not, dropping into everyday conversations, which, these are great choices. Loving these. Brilliant. Fantastic. Track 3 is, what is your favorite cover version?
This again, I was thinking long and hard about it, and my friend Catherine Williams has done a great record of covers called Relations, and she does a great version of Spit on a Stranger, the Pavement song. But while I was thinking about it, I was also thinking These Days by Nico, which is a Jackson Browne song, and it's just one of the best songs ever. And I think her version manages to be better than Jackson Browne's, which I also love and heard first. But yeah, I mean, I love Nico and Velvet Underground, and so yeah, that one I think just pips it. But it's nice to tip your listeners off to Catherine Williams' Spit on a Stranger as well.
Fantastic choice, mate. I 100%. Sometimes what I do when I know the person who's coming on, I have a little game with myself and try and think about what songs people might pick when they come on. 1,000,000%, I thought you were going to go Future Head's Hounds of Love all day long. All day long, I thought that's where you were going to go. Track 4, Paul, is if you were wanting to put a song on your mixtape that you wish you could play to your 18-year-old self.
This is tough. I mean, I think there's a lot of songs that I got into, maybe even, I guess, around the start of the band, sort of mid-20s, when our first album came out, that, the rest of the band turned me on to, or stuff that I'd never heard and always meant to listen to. Things like Can, or, I was into Noi, but I wasn't into Can necessarily. And people say, Tom in our band or Dunk would say, yeah, give this one a listen. I remember Tom doing, again, I was a big Fall fan, but Tom, they've got so many albums, and Tom was like, have you heard this one? And, have you heard This Nation's Saving Grace? And I was like, no. And so again, he did me a little compilation, and we actually ended up covering Edinburgh Man by The Fall, but calling it Middlesbrough Man. But that's another story. But yeah, I think, well, yeah, I guess probably early, around that same time, I got well into Arthur Russell, and Arthur Russell is like one of my favorite artists ever. And I think, I guess give me an extra sort of 7 years of listening to Arthur Russell, and being into Arthur Russell when I was younger would have made me cooler as well, possibly. So we'll go with Keeping Up by Arthur Russell, which I absolutely love.
All right, track 5. Pick a song you would put on your mixtape for a romantic interest. If you're trying to woo someone and you want to give them a mixtape, what song would you use for that, mate?
It might actually just send them into tears. But the first time ever I saw your face, there's so many great versions of it. I like to go for a heartbreaker on my mixtape. Just set my stall out early to any prospective romantic involvement.
That's the way, mate. That's the way to do it, for sure. All right, finally, to wrap up your mixtape, Paul, I asked you to choose a deep cut B-side album track or something like that that's a bit underappreciated.
I'm gonna go with there was a Smith song called Gene, and that was, I remember listening to the Smiths B-sides and thinking, oh my God, these are as good as the A-sides. And I think that is the key to a great band. And Gene by the Smiths, still, I would love to, I'm going to put it on now. I'm getting excited already.
Brilliant. Unbelievably, this is episode 130 of the mixtape. That is the first time anyone's picked the Smiths. Thank you, Paul, for breaking that duck. I've been waiting for that for so long because I love the Smiths. I'm a huge Smith fan. Yeah, that's been getting on my nerves for the best part of 2.5 years. But yeah, we're there now. Brilliant. Bit of Smiths on the mixtape. Love it. All right, it is destroyallines.com for tickets to the Maximo Park 20th anniversary A Certain Trigger tour. Back end of April in Australia, kicking off in Fremantle Frio Social on April the 23rd. And it's maximopark.com for the vinyl and merch and all that other good stuff, as well as your local independent record store. Paul, it's been an absolute pleasure chatting to you, mate. Thank you so much for coming on the show. Safe travels down under, and we'll see you when you get here. Can't wait to see the show, mate.
See you soon. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. Bye, mate. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much for listening to the Mixtape podcast. If you've enjoyed this episode, don't forget to go to the top of the page and rate it 5 stars, or give us a like or follow on social media at the Mixtape podcast and radio show. Don't forget, there's over 100 archive episodes just waiting to be discovered. And all you need to do is visit themixtapepodcast.com. Thank you so much for listening. Until next time.